The time is now 5 o'clock, and we're going to go ahead and call this work session to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Stevens, will you please take attendance?
Mrs. Drum?
Yes, here.
Mr. Maines?
Yes, here.
Mrs. Dillard?
Here.
Mrs. McMurray?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
All present accounted for. We have quorum and can continue.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. At this time, I will have a motion to approve the current agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Maines,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Thompson. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote.
Maines?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Drum?
Yes.
Dillard?
Yes.
McMurray?
Yes.
Motion to approve the agenda passes. Okay, first item on the agenda, our discussion item is board meetings. Moving forward, just questions, Mr. Moran?
So we have the organizational meeting coming up on the 7th. And so we made a change, obviously, in October to go to board meetings on the same night, or have one board meeting a month, one night a month where we meet. We have the work session at 5, 6 o'clock for the regular meeting. Wanted to get people's thoughts, from what everybody's shared. We enjoy continuing that practice. That's what I've gathered from everybody, and want to make sure that, at the organizational meeting, if that's what we want, we can set up a schedule to be approved for what the board meeting minutes, so in case there's any holidays that fall in, we can adjust those, but we would do it the third Tuesday of every month, if that's still something that everybody's good with. I know when I first started, we had Mondays, and we had Monday work session, Tuesday regular meetings. So if we want to do it all Tuesday again like we've done, wanted to get everybody's thoughts.
I like the idea. My only question is, what happens in the event that we have a work session that might be a little lengthier? Like, what if we needed more than just 1 hour for a work session? Does that carry that on into the regular meeting time, or how do we go about that?
You would end it, and you could
And then start.
re-adjourn it later, I believe. Like after the regular meeting, you could re-adjourn,
You can go into recess.
recess, and just come back.
Or,
recess.
So we would
depending on what it
recess.
is too, we could
Yeah.
actually go ahead and, if it's only gonna be like another 10-minute discussion, we could finish it and then just
Yeah.
start the next meeting late too.
Okay.
If we think it's going to be a longer work session, I would recommend
Adjusting.
Adjusting on the front
either
end.
we start earlier, or we actually pick another date for a special meeting.
Yeah.
To address something.
I think, I like the current format that we've had. That would, not even a concern. That's a procedural question. What do we do
Okay.
in the event of?
Okay.
Other than that, I'm a big fan of work session before and then regular meeting after, personally.
Cindy?
I think it works fine. It feels a little long between meetings, but I think it works fine. I think it makes us more efficient, and we can accomplish the work in an hour. So I'm fine with the third Tuesdays.
Rick, any thoughts?
No, I like the idea.
So you just miss seeing us
I
between the
do.
meetings? Or is there something else you're missing? Is it something else that you
No,
have?
it just feels,
Feels
it just,
time.
it just feels like a long time, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I kind of felt like that too, because I am such in a habit of like every other week having something. But I like the how efficient this is now. Like, I like how we
yeah, I do
get
too.
everything finished.
I think that it's important to be efficient in meetings, yeah. So I like that,
And if we need to have a special meeting, we can call a special meeting.
yeah.
So,
We are technically saving the district money, correct?
Yeah.
No, we're still,
No.
every time you take the roll and have a meeting,
It's a
that
meeting.
is,
Oh.
you get
Yeah.
paid for that, so.
I thought it was.
If it was one meeting a month, then we would be, but we're still doing a work session for long discussions and then a regular meeting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so if there's a month where we're like, we don't really need a work session and we just did a board meeting, then yes.
okay.
And that could happen depending on how efficient we continue to be too, because that's been a discussion with me and Mr. Moran also. I'm very hesitant to give up the work session part, because I feel like a lot of times we can discuss things openly in this part of it and kind of get to a solution before we actually go to the meeting. So then we're not spending extra time in the meeting to discussing something, so we can be more efficient on that side of it too. So that's why I've been hesitant to give it up.
I also like Tuesdays better than Mondays
too.
personally. Mondays tend to be kind of busy, and also you run into holidays on a lot of Mondays, especially third Mondays.
It's true.
So,
So I'll look at the calendar, and if there's any dates that may conflict with a holiday or some activity, we'll
Yeah,
make an
but we'll-
adjustment there
yeah,
for the.
And we'll
for-
officially decide on that in January anyway at the
January,
first
yeah.
meeting. So we have time to look at that too.
Well, it seems like a long time from now, but it's gonna be here really fast.
I know,
with
I
the-
realized that
the
too after I
holidays.
said
It's
that,
just- yeah,
the
it just
7th.
seems
I know
like-
it'll come really quick.
Again, I don't know where it snuck up.
I
on
know,
us, but-
it's going so quickly. So along with board meetings though, I have a question.
Yep.
I brought this up previous to this current board, just FYI, and it was voted down. But can we have another discussion again about possibly getting rid of it being on YouTube? Not necessarily not recording anymore, but getting rid of it being
The live.
on you, the live part of it.
So live streaming,
Yeah. I still
would
think it's
agree with that.
important, yeah, like I still feel like it's important to have a record of
Right.
what is discussed, but I don't know if it necessarily needs, I mean, maybe our 6 viewers will be sad, but,
just because it's, well, it's obviously taking up a lot of
yeah, it takes up.
Thomas's time.
Thomas's time.
Set
and-
up and dealing with stuff, but it
Yeah.
also, there's not people watching. We have
No.
a place.
Right.
that
We have a
can
large
hold-
enough space that
Yeah.
people can come, because originally, it was all done because we were still doing it in the board office, and, you know, people were still worried about coming to event, you know, things like that. And we've had times at the board office where it was packed, like to the max. Here,
We've
I
had
don't-
a hair pack too.
yes, we have, but it was a different kind of packed there because it's a much smaller space.
Yes.
But yeah, I'd like maybe you guys to have some of your thoughts on it too.
I'd be curious to see the data of the live, watching it live versus watching it on your own time afterwards. You know, this day and age, a lot of people that aren't able to, that don't have a lot of mobility or transportation, you know, some of our older residents probably enjoy that option, especially in cold weather and that sort of thing, and darkness, you know, but I would just be curious to see the data and
Okay.
whether there's, how significant it is of live versus, you know, a delay, being able to watch it on your own time.
Okay.
And I think before, when it was on the, what is it called, that public TV?
KITTV.
You know, people could
Watch it
tune in,
later.
it would be repeated, it'd be
Yeah.
on a cycle, and they could kind of watch it, you know, catch it whenever they could. But now that it's stored on YouTube, it's a little different.
Okay.
But I think the point being though, that they can still watch it.
Right.
anytime.
Right.
So we're not getting rid of it.
No.
It's just the live
Yes.
The
session
live
part.
version.
The live portion.
Yeah.
So as a matter of fact, it's probably more limited when it's the live version because it's only on there at one time.
Exactly.
So, you know, well, I guess they still.
Yeah, it's still.
can
Yeah,
access
it's
it.
still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I agree with you that, you know, if we just took the live portion off and it's still available to the public, you know, I think that works out great.
It's not like there's a live interaction.
Right.
And so I don't feel that it's necessary to be live.
Right.
We're paying for an additional person to be here. And it's not like anyone who's watching it is gonna have real-time interaction with anything that's happening. So I don't feel like there's a problem with recording and then just having it up and at a later time,
Right.
so, like it used to be.
Yeah.
Kyle?
I agree. I think Cindy brings up a good point. That's not a perspective I had considered.
Yeah, me
before,
either.
So I appreciate you bringing that up. You know, the benefit of having a captured meeting would be for those people who maybe it's more difficult for them to get around, or they had intended to be here, but they couldn't be, and so they wanted to go back and view it later. So I think capturing it is still probably a good idea. Personally, I think not having it live removes the incentive for sensationalism, which we've not been in short supply of. And so I think that we can do without that. I think if there's less incentive for, I think if people would like to comment and are interested and want to get involved in our process, I think us having open meetings should be incentive enough where they can come and participate, rather than, with all due respect, sit behind a keyboard and say what they want to say with relative anonymity or whatever. I think it's healthy to have an open forum where people can come in person and do that, but I don't think we need to incentivize sensationalism. And I think having a live stream does that in some respects. So maybe more of a nuanced take, but that's a part of what I think is, would be healthy by going straight to capture instead of live.
Okay.
And again, I think that data collection will support whatever decision we make. Because if we only have 4 or 5 live viewers, it doesn't make sense to keep it live.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know
Would that be
exactly what you're
something that
saying.
we could get relatively quickly? Like, would
Yep.
there be an archive we can go back
Yes.
in on?
I'm
and
pretty
get
sure
those?
Thomas can find that pretty quick for us.
So we can get, I believe we can have live data and viewed data as well. So it's just,
Thomas is
let me
saying yes.
gather, I can gather that and bring it to the next meeting. We may have to, I'll have to look at the board policies with some of that, just to make sure that if any of those need to be changed, we would have to look at and make changes if it's, I know there's some, I think there's some board policy with recordings currently. I don't know if it says live or not.
I can't-
But we'll have to, I'll get that information and share that out.
Remember.
Any
I would think that
pertinent
it
policy.
couldn't be edited. I would think that the recording would
but I
have to be
don't-
unedited, whatever's published.
When I looked at the policy, it said recording, but it did not
Okay.
say live, but,
It just said to keep a record of.
yeah, correct.
I think to Cindy's point too, we'd also, I think we need to discuss a threshold at which we would consider going away from live. For example, if there's 3 or 4 people watching, I think that's a pretty easy decision. But what if there's 40 or 50? Is there a threshold that we would want to establish or have in mind where, you know what, we feel like that's enough of a value add, enough people are participating, that we should keep it there and continue doing it? And anything under that, we would say it's really, you know, it's not worth continuing to do it. I think, I would just be interested to know, based on the data, what would be sort of a mark that we would think is not worth continuing it, or saying, you know what, that's probably a value add to the community. So I don't have that answer, I'm just putting it out there as, because I don't want it to be arbitrary. If we have one meeting that's viewed by 60 people and the next one's 4, and we have this kind of up and down,
Yeah.
I just think we need to have sort of a target that we would aim for, maybe an average, I don't know.
There's
Well,
about
it-
10,000 registered voters in Tip City, so,
We'd have to decide a threshold
But
with that
Well, the
number.
only thing is we're not changing the availability for
No,
people
we're
to
not.
see it.
Sure.
So
right,
We're not.
I don't see where that comes into play, how many, currently, because, there were times last year before you guys got on the board where there was a ton
right,
of people because of the controversy we had.
right.
But,
That's a good point, yeah, the
Yeah,
fact that
so,
it'll still be
you know.
archived.
yeah, I don't see that
Yeah.
influencing or impacting the
I
decision.
agree, I don't, yeah. I think the live portion of it, just, I think it's time it can go. And we welcome the community to come join us or watch at a later time, and then contact using the proper chain of command. After they've viewed it, then contact as appropriate with questions, so.
And maybe it is more of an incentive for people to actually come live.
Yeah, I'd love to see people show up to our meetings. That'd be really cool. I'd like that. Yeah.
Well-
And not just because they're invited, because their
Yeah.
kids are here, you know, but like actually
They-
stay
they show
around.
up, Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me get the data and then I can share that with everybody.
Okay.
Maybe we'll go back, maybe even just this year and see what the data last 12 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
And then
interesting.
any policy that I'll look into that to see.
I'm
about
just
that, make
interested to
sure
see
it's
the
shared.
data in general.
Yeah.
I like data.
I think that probably some people even may watch just for us, just to see their kids. Maybe they live in another city, their grandparents, they see their
Yep.
kids get an award, or they couldn't come, or they got other kids at home and they couldn't, I
Yeah.
mean, they may watch a short period of time even, but, again, it's recorded so they can do it at a later time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Next, Mr. Moran, building update.
So we have started having some staff meetings, so we've gone over the plan. I printed out, and I'll have it for tomorrow night's. Tomorrow night, we have a community meeting here in LT Ball at 6 PM.
Yes.
So I'll have those printouts, but even those printouts were just done last week. They're outdated already because we've made a bunch of changes.
Yay.
I shouldn't say bunch of changes, but we're looking at the process of the education of kids and trying to get everything as streamlined, as efficient as possible, and making sure we're within the 218,000 square feet that we have, and we are there on target with everything. Now it's just a matter of making sure all of our pieces from support staff, whether it's title services, ELL, special education, OTPT, everybody has spaces there and how we're doing it. I've been happy with our consultant has really helped push towards that, and our Garmin Miller has been great in working with them as well. We've had quite a few meetings, and again, it just seemed, we had another meeting today, we made more changes to make that happen. So it's moving along, and we're still on track for everything, and it's gonna be a great building. So if anybody wants to show up tomorrow night, we're gonna kind of, again, show the plans that they're old, but gives the basic concept of the pods for grade level, and we've gotten some input again from teachers, you know, ways to maybe make sure things that they like about it, things that they may have questions on, and then things they want to make sure we're considering. And we have that gathered for they've had 2 meetings yesterday, 2 today, and it doesn't seem like 12 months ago we unveiled
I know.
the conceptual drawing, but it does not look anything like the conceptual
does
drawing.
not.
We also shared it out to everybody.
Yeah, we all
on
got
the
it.
weekly updates as well, so the community has seen it a few days ahead of time, again. So I'm looking forward to getting some input on that from the community. What questions might anybody have with the updates that you've seen, or have you heard anything that,
I was
Might
on
be.
the phone yesterday with Spring Mead Activities Coordinator,
Mhm.
and she was saying how much they enjoyed having you out before, so.
oh, yeah, been out there. They've been great to go visit. They want to see good things happening in Tipp.
Yeah.
They want to be
So-
proud of the schools. And a couple of them are former teachers or educators, so
yeah.
they kind of have an interest as well they're kind of curious, maybe a little more curious than others in regards to that.
There's a number of teachers
Yeah.
out there.
And
Yeah.
they've been great support even through various stuff, even before this. They were a great audience. They don't heckle me or anything like that. They've been great.
That's
Sort
nice.
of a random question, do you know off the top of your head the square footprint of this building of LT Ball?
I do not know that off the top of my head. We are substantially shrinking the overall footprint of getting rid of Nevin, getting rid of the middle school, getting rid of the Broadway.
Yeah.
We're substantially shrinking our footprint to become very efficient.
Right, I will get questions sometimes about how big is 218,000 50,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And
For
sometimes it's
campers.
useful
Yes.
to be able to say, well, you know, LT ball,
It's this
Yes,
size.
okay.
100,000 square
Yeah.
feet.
I think
the
whatever
high
this
school
might be.
Is
I think the high school's
210?
close, yeah,
Somewhere around there.
210.
Okay,
or
So it'll
ish.
be a little bigger.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just to have a reference for people who, because I actually have gotten that question quite a
Yeah,
bit.
Yeah.
I could get that and share that out.
Other than
Multi-ball.
saying like a Home Depot, it's hard to put into
Yeah.
perspective, you
Yeah.
know, like how big.
the other day I was standing outside at Main Street Preschool and I was looking across the way and there's a church across the street and it's gonna escape my mind of what church that is. Y'all will know in a minute.
Nazarene?
Thank you. And I realized that it's a 3-story like steeple. And I was like, oh, so that would be the height of like our school. Like that was like a good reference for me to like say to a parent who was asking me at preschool like pickup. Like I was like, it'll be that tall.
Yeah, roughly about 48, 50 feet
Yeah.
probably.
So that was like a good reference point to make, at least for height.
Yep. I taught in a 3-story building, and it was
Me too.
specials in 6th grade at the bottom, and 7th, and some 7th and 8th, and then 8th at the top. So, I mean, the building's gone now, but, you know, Concord and Troy is a 3-story building. Central, for all sake and purposes, is parts of it. I guess you can consider
3 stories.
how far
levels.
you're gonna go down.
Yeah,
Dungeon.
into the dungeon.
Well, that's why there's so many skyscrapers in big cities, because it's a lot
Yeah.
cheaper to go up than it is
Exactly.
down.
Yes.
So-
Right.
We're hoping that's the case. Obviously, there's some more codes when you go up 3 stories and you're
Yes.
using steel versus,
Yes.
probably using steel versus masonry, but we're hoping there's some efficiencies cost-wise. And again, by doing this, we've saved the tennis courts. Our utilities now
Yeah.
are not affected, so we do not have to reroute utilities, really. It's, and not only do we not have to do that, but there's a lot of time saving, we think, by not having to do the utilities. So it's,
Plumbing's a lot cheaper too.
knock on wood, it's been, we've had some good wins.
I would just
by
like
changing this.
to say with the building, with the community, and, you know, with the staff, I think that it's important to attend the meetings if possible. If you have a question, if you're thinking about it, write it down and submit that question, because I'll kind of echo something that Kyle said. We would love to be able to answer those questions truthfully and factually with the information we have versus your first. Then you create an uproar of nonsensical information.
Thanks, yes.
So I think that I encourage the community to come to these events that have been set up, but if they cannot, please don't hesitate to submit those questions, either to Amber or directly to Aaron. That would be great, so.
It's moving. We got a day-long meeting tomorrow on plumbing, mechanical, electrical, technology.
Awesome.
It's a lot. Yeah. it's-
Yeah, and
Dave's got his head spinning with, where's all this money?
Well, I'm waiting for the first bill.
Yeah,
When does our honors run start?
he's been started.
Yeah,
So
he
was at-
started.
Yeah, he was at the afternoon meetings yesterday and today with staff as well. He'll be here tomorrow night with the community. He's been in these meetings.
Great.
Kim and Clay have taken him around to the various buildings as well. So, yeah,
Good.
it's happening.
And then, since you guys got a chance to look at the design too already, was there anything that you saw that you were like, had questions about or?
I shared with Aaron, I really like the design because I like the flexibility of it. Coming just from my personal background, having all these spaces that can serve in different needs at different times. I mean, like a million different things came into my mind where you need space, like this teacher needs a space to display all these projects. This teacher needs a space to spread out, or you need a spot for a parent meeting, or
I love
you
that.
need individual testing room, or, I mean, just like 1,000 things popped into my head, but with the design, I think that there's a lot of flexibility. And I really like the design because it really feels community. It feels kind of snuggly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only word I can think.
You know that's
Right.
going in the minutes, right?
I know, I can't wait for that word to be in there. I'm excited about
Snuggly,
it.
but it does, it just feels the design feels very warm to me.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's coming in like this, like,
Like a heart shape.
no, it just, I don't know, the three, like
They're
The
all
three
together.
wings.
It feels
Yeah.
like it's a community, that's how
Yeah.
it feels.
Having never served in or worked in a school building, this is the first time that I've been involved in looking at a building of this nature in this kind of detail. But the operating principle for me is always versatility, to Cindy's point. And anything that, I mean, we can get an extra 10 or 15 years out of a building like this just because we're designing it to be versatile. Anytime you're designing a space for a specific intended purpose, without the forethought that that purpose could change at some point down the line, you're really putting yourself in a box. And so the way that this is being designed, I was telling Aaron this, is fantastic because there's so much mobility, there's so much flexibility. One space can be something for a couple of years and we decide it doesn't serve that purpose anymore. It can be swapped for another space or another floor or rotated or, so I think we're just giving ourselves the best possible options with this building and the way that it's being designed. So I'm happy with it. And again, that's from the perspective of somebody who's not intimately familiar with educational spaces. I just think it's a smart plan, so.
I was just gonna follow up and say, you know, one of my biggest things is making sure that it's safe, so that front entryway and all access around, making sure that whatever we're doing is safe for the students and staff that's there. I know that, you know, when I attended prior community meetings, people were concerned about kiddos of kindergarten interacting with eighth graders. And I think that it's hard, again, that visual piece is hard to understand, that they're not gonna be in classrooms with each other, but how cool would it be if you have a cluster group of students who are reading at the same grade level and it's third, fourth, and fifth grade who can challenge and have a space where they can go work together. I taught in a K through 12 building, and I loved when my high school students, when we went and did science experiments with the kindergarten and the first graders, and they were mentors and big brothers and big sisters, and you know, it brings siblings together and they can see each other, and it's that level of comfort as well. So I think it's just hard. It's a cultural thing. We've not done it that way, and it's hard to wrap a head around. And I think that some people are maybe still trying to wrap their head around how they're gonna get all those kiddos through a cafeteria for lunch. And again, I worked in a K through 12 building as well as Aaron, and I have seen it efficiently done. I never in my wildest dreams thought that it could happen. But when you have more than 2 lines or 1 line, then it becomes much more efficient. And when you have 4 lines and they're running that way, it's definitely workable. So I think that's the biggest thing, is to remember that, and maybe that's something that we think about, because that visual piece is important. You know, if we do know of buildings that are in the area that they would be willing for us to post pictures, or you know, maybe if they wanted to talk about, you know, how it works or something like that with the community, I think it's important to understand that, because, you know, the kiddos haven't been together in a K through 12 or even a K through 8 situation, so, or even a K through 5 situation in a very long time. And so that's how it was when I went here, it was K through 5. So, you know, coming back to that and having those conversations, and also not losing sight of the fact that there's certain things that we all would love to see and have in the new building, but we do have constraints monetarily, space, things that the state requires.
Yeah.
So even though there are things that we want, unfortunately, it may, at the end of the day, it may not be possible, but please know that we have a wonderful group that's working and to make it the best possible scenario for the students and staff and community that are going to be in this space. So keeping that in mind.
As I mentioned in email to you, that We are, the 9th and 10th, we are going to visit schools, one recommended from the OFCC, one from our consultant, and one from our architect. So we'll have 3 different views of 3 different buildings that some are award-winning, and they're not real close, but within an hour probably each way. But I think, again, we'll get some other ideas to help us finalize the design to be the best possible for our kids.
Do we have a target date on when we hope the design to be complete?
SD design is, I think, it's gonna be late February, early March will be the SD design completion. And then they'll go into design development for CD, construction documents and their blueprints. So that's gonna be, and once we get to SD to DD, that's when we'll look at doing a pre-site package, that we'll order some things that we know we're gonna need, try to get it, especially
At
those
best
that have
cost.
big lead times.
Yep.
To get those taken care of early, this we're not waiting on things.
Gotcha.
So, but we have to, I'm pretty sure with OFCC requirements, we have to be done with DD in order to do the site package. So that's gonna be a couple months after the SD is done, we hope.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved seeing the big blueprints of it at the meeting I was at the other day, so we could kind of like look at the design
Yeah.
space and stuff. So please come tomorrow, community, if you have time. It'll be cool. All right. Next is class fee discussion.
This is something that we had talked about at the beginning of the year, about reducing class fees, and just, we've had some other conversations about things, and really as just the collection of it, the dealing with it, and the obstacles that they mean to kids and families, that we really are taking a hard look at trying to remove all class fees for next year. It is, it's gonna have to be something that's a dollars and cents piece. And I think it's still the best thing that we can do for kids is to remove these fees that I think inhibit some possibilities for things. It'd be great to just have a magic wand and get rid of all of them, including pay to play. We're not there yet. I'm hoping we can get there, and by the end of the year, we'll be able to absorb this piece. And I think, even with this, I think if we didn't have these things, I think we'd still get more back than doing these charges. So, just something that I wanted to make sure, I know we talked about, and everybody would like to get, I think everybody was in favor of it, just wanted to know how that would work. We haven't lost sight of that, and we're really figuring out how to make that happen for a lot of things. Yep.
So my comment on it was, I even said if there was like each year there was just like a set amount, like rather than, because you have a high school student, so you understand what I'm talking about. Each class has a different class fee that's attached to it as they get older. It's not just like a set number. So something like that would even be helpful moving forward, like, set number this year, then maybe a little less the next year or something like that. As a tiered system was my thought too, as we move towards that.
I just think whatever we can do, paying the fees for my boys this year was astronomical. So I think whatever we can do to make the learning more accessible for students, I think that's important. If there's an elective course that they want to take, but they can't afford the fee, I think that is really sad that we're not able to offer that for our students. And I think sometimes we lose sight that that is a possibility for some of our students. Erin, I've mentioned this to you before, but the other thing that I would love to potentially have somebody have a conversation is when you have a fee after September and you have to go in and pay said fee, they charge you a pretty good
Yes. Convenience fee.
convenience fee on what's that called? What's this?
Power-
Pay schools.
Pay schools.
Pay schools. And I think that if I'm paying a $20 fee for my kid because they've joined a club, but the convenience fee is $10 on top of it, I think that's completely inappropriate. And if pay schools, if that's the best that they can do, I think that we need to maybe look at another vendor. There are lots.
No.
No?
Pay Schools is the best vendor for collecting school fees
Okay.
that we've found. We've looked into it because we didn't like what was happening. But we do offer, I understand that school fees can be assigned later than that, the fee holiday that we do in August and September. But, I mean, unless the board wants to take on all convenience fees for the whole year.
Then I think that anyone who has a fee, then they have to have, I think that there is no reason why we can't know what that fee is when the summer starts. For-
You mean the convenience fee?
No.
No,
what
like if there's another
like, There are
class.
times when I didn't even get, if, I didn't know what my kids'
It's-
class fees were until after.
Well, it's based
September.
on their class schedule, and it should load automatically when their class schedule is set.
Unfortunately, it does not,
Okay, well,
so.
okay,
Well,
when
they
that
may
doesn't
change their
happen,
schedule.
please
So-
contact the board office and we can try to see what happened. Yeah,
Well-
This is another thing that you don't need to make another obstacle for people
Right.
to
Yeah.
do.
I was gonna say, is there a way that we could offer like a second time during the year that we get rid of you know what I mean, the convenience fees, like at like January or something, you know, like, so people could pay half at the beginning of the year and then half at the other half
Do
of the
they
year?
have to
or-
pay their fees through this site? Can they come drop off a
No,
check?
you
No,
can drop
you can
off
pay
a
online.
check,
I mean,
but I
you can
don't
pay
think
at
a
the
lot of
building.
people know that because it's been very much said paid through Pay School. So I don't know if people know that they can write a check, like they can write a check for lunch too, or they can send in cash, like, but I don't know if that's very clearly,
Can we
Indicated.
get a list, I mean, from a grandparent's perspective, I don't see these fees the way you guys see them having the kids in school, but could we, as a board, get a list of what all those fees are?
Yeah, we can send them out to you again.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd
We,
like to see
we had
that.
them, before,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's when,
They're
Clear back
you
posted
all know
online.
my feelings
yes,
about fees.
we do. We do.
Well, I
We do not
I'll
disagree with
resend, I'll resend the list to
Okay,
everybody.
yeah, I'd like to see
But I
that.
will,
We do not disagree with you.
Dave and I will talk about the convenience fee and see if there's other ways, or maybe it's just, there's
Yeah.
just some communication.
And what I'm
Yeah,
interested in seeing is not just how much it is per fee, per class, per student, but how much was total fees generated
Yep.
in the last school year?
Yep,
In
yeah.
each one of those categories.
We can figure that out,
Okay.
probably. Yep. Dave has, those probably at
Yeah.
his.
Last year's school fees were 167,610.
Total?
Yeah, that does not include class fees, where they pay $10 for their class fee to cover dance expenses, which is whatever they do for the class fees. Or college credit plus tuitions,
Yeah,
where.
I'd like to see all of it.
Yeah. And then athletics, 93,700. And then club fees, activity fees. We've already removed Chromebook fees and PBIS, that was 60,000, so that's gone. But,
We can get, send out accounting.
Okay.
We'll have it, again, nothing's changing for this year.
Right.
Just, we'll get it to you, but we are
Okay,
definitely
thank
looking
you.
at making that change.
Okay. All right, any other discussion, class fees? Okay, moving on. At this time, I would love a motion to adjourn this work session.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Maines to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Dillard. Is there any discussion on adjourning? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote.
Maines?
Yes.
Dillard?
Yes.
Drum?
Yes.
McMurray?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
All right, time is now 5:40, and this meeting of the Tipp City School Board for work session is currently adjourned.
All right. Now, where's our dinner?
Should